All right, go ahead and start, please. Thanks. Denise and Helen, are you ready?
Yes, I'm here. Helen is going to start first, so I was just waiting for her.
I started, but I hadn't unmuted myself, sorry. Glad we've got that one out of the way. Okay, hello everyone, good afternoon. It's just afternoon in the UAE, the United Arab Emirates, where we're based. Denise and I both work at the higher colleges of technology. It's tertiary education at university level, and we're teaching in the English communications program. Today we're going to talk about leading into extensive reading through storytelling. We've got quite a lot of things to tell you, and there's quite a few practical things and a little bit of theory, but it's more a description of kind of a project that we implemented for many, many reasons. So the overview of the session. First of all, we'd like to get to know your ideas. So we'll start with a bit of an interactive activity, because I think you have been sitting in front of your screens for quite a long time. We'll explain who our students are, talk about their levels and their motivations to read. We'll mention a couple of UAE national initiatives which prompted us to implement this project. We'll talk about why we think reading aloud is important, and then Denise will explain how we implemented the online story competition and how she got to grips with the technology and put everything together there. And then we'll talk about our takeaways from the project, and then we'll ask you about yours as well. So please feel free, to make comments in the chat, but we will be having the question and answers at the end, and then we'll also be going out into the breakout room as we have been doing previously. Okay, so here we go. Right now, it's the quick activity. We've been teaching a lot online. I'm sure a lot of people haven't, probably you know about this particularly useful website. So if you could please join Kahoot It, and when you do that, and oops, sorry, let's just go back. It's better to do it on your phone. Perhaps you've got the app. There is an app for this as well. So you don't need to download that now, because you can just do it through your browser on your smartphone if possible. Denise is going to share the link in the chat, I think. You can enter the site. Well, I said this is your smartphone. It's not a new piece of technology. There's a typo there. Or you can open another tab on your screen, but you do have to see the two screens at the same time. So you have to flip between the two. If not, you can just answer the questions in the chat box. So I am now going to leave the presentation here, and I'm going to go to my the activity. So yes, I think some people have mentioned, when you get to the actual site, you will need to enter the code. Okay, you need to join. So if you join the activity using the code that's going to appear, and I think Denise, will you be able to put in the chat?
Yes.
There. No, we only have 6 questions. It's not exactly a game. There isn't going to be a winner, I don't think, today. I was thinking about that as we were preparing it, and I thought the winner, if there is a winner today, I think the winner will get a free ticket to the next conference. Maybe Paul Goldberg would like to put that one. Is he there? Is he listening? We don't know, you see. Oh, he's back. You're muted.
I'm back in video and voice.
Well, great. Thank you, Mahendra. You've been doing all your exercises, so this is a little bit of exercise for your brain. For your brain and also for your hands here. Jackie, thank you very much. We'll start it when we've got about maybe 10 players, 10 participants. We'll turn that off. I don't think you can hear it anyway. Denise, what do you think? Are you going to join us, Denise?
Okay, I can.
Thank you. Anyone else? Was that it? There's just 3 of us. Thank you, Odie. Welcome. Judy, thank you very much. Welcome. Is there anyone here from the UAE? Because I'm sure you've well, we'll see. Paul, that took some time. Nang, I think when we do these kind of things, we expect some, immediate responses. But when we're online, I think we have to be a little bit more patient. Something I've learned from online teaching. And of course, we're not all in the same place. We're not all in the UAE. Alison, thank you. It's nice to see the name. So Denise, there, took you quite some time. So maybe there's something in the chat. Oh, that's Denise there. Mark, welcome. Right, how many have we got? 13. Oh, that's good. That's usually what we get from, if there are 25 students in our class, we usually get about half of them awake and joining the activities. You agree, Denise?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So if you do want to join in, and obviously you can't get grip with this, but you don't want to, please join in the chat. That will be very helpful. Okay, let's start. Oh, someone just got in there. Here we go. Hope it works. Technology and all that, Folks, we'd like to know. We teach in higher education, but we've both got quite a bit of experience in primary and, K to 12 school. Denise also used to work in nurseries, right, Denise?
Yeah, that's right. Montessori trained nursery teacher.
Here we are. This is great. Oh, what happened there? So all will be revealed. It seems either we've written different words in or... Yes, there we go. Let's have a quick look. Okay, so most of the people who've answered, I would say, are in tertiary education, similar to us. So, of course, we're talking about students reading aloud. A lot of the time, people think it's not a pertinent activity for higher education, but we're advocating today that it could well be. Next. And where are you? When I wrote this yesterday, I wrote, where are you now? And Denise answered at home. Once that, we're just interested now to see which countries you're actually working in. Answer. We have to wait for the time out here. Very exciting, isn't it, waiting for the answers to be revealed?
And people are answering in the chat as well. Thank you, Mongolia. Mongolia.
Oh yes, Mongolia, China, Mongolia, India. That's UAE. Is that you, Denise, or is there someone else?
Yes, I think that's probably me.
Okay, very nice. So in the groups, I've met someone from Mongolia, Myanmar.
Excellent.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? But so for the MENA Extensive Reading Foundation, this doesn't bode well, I think. What's in the chat, Denise?
Sorry. No, nothing else, okay. Just Mongolia.
Well, that's good. So here, as you're reading, I shall read aloud. Can university students benefit from reading aloud activity? What do you think about that? Seeing as most of us are. For sure, great. You're not sure. Well, I hope the two people that are not so sure about that today might feel more sure about it at the end of the session. Thank you. Now, what do you think? What are some of the benefits of reading aloud? Giving you more time because you're writing here. Maybe you have to think a little bit. I'm not good at thinking on the spot. can see here how many answers we have. Four, three, two, one. And what can be revealed? Oopsie daisy. We've submitted. Here we go. I can show you the answers here. And we can see. If we quickly look. Denise?
Okay, yes. I said oral fluency and confidence. People said improving in listening skills, pronunciation, let friends enjoy the pleasure of listening to your story, improve fluency, can memorize more, to know words.
Excellent.
Understand better vocab and grammar constructions. Relate to other stories, yeah.
Excellent.
Lots of great
so
ideas
I feel
there.
That, we're on the same page.
Yeah, definitely.
We're moving in the right direction. Excellent. 5 of 6 questions. What about this one?
And Aina Gul has added vocabulary too to the list.
Yes. Sometimes. Okay, so we've got some people, and most of the people participating think that they do. Have you got any comments, Denise, about your short films, or the short films that our
Well, I know that many of our students really enjoy watching short films with subtitles because they feel as though that's how they're learning vocabulary and grammar structures, but especially vocabulary. And in essay writing or in conversation, the words they come out with definitely show that they've gained a lot of them from films.
Mm-hmm.
You know, or if you ask them to talk about spies or murder or detectives, they have a plethora of words which they've obviously gained from film watching.
Mm-hmm. So we're also kind of moving over to extensive listening as well here, as we incorporate the reading aloud activity. Last question. Do you like having stories read to you? Do you like listening to people's stories? Is your context a storytelling culture as it is here in the UAE? Great. That's what we do like to listen. Within the conference here, I've heard lots of stories from friends that I've met in previous conferences, and I really enjoyed catching up with everyone. Okay, so that's the little bit of an activity. I hope you feel like you're tuned in to what we're actually trying to accomplish today. And we'll now go back to the PowerPoint. Okay, share this. Where is it? Here we go. So the next thing I wanted to, even that you can all see the screen with it there. Who are our students? So you've given us a little bit of insight to where you are and what you're all teaching. But our students, we can say that the UAE has quite a unique, it is quite a unique context. And our particular context in the Higher Colleges of Technology English Communications Department consists of male Emirati students studying in an all-male college, and they're aged 18 plus. And many of them come straight from high school, and they're all studying English as a second language. You have to bear in mind that they have been studying since kindergarten, but still they haven't been able to achieve a level to get them direct entry into the bachelor program. As I've mentioned there, they've been unable to pass the benchmark English exam to enter higher education. They severely lack reading and study skills. Now, I believe if they had those skills, they wouldn't be in our department. They would have passed the benchmark English exam, which is, equivalent to IELTS Band 5. and suddenly they're learning in an online class. Now, we did have hybrid learning in the past, but since COVID, we've all had to deal with this. Often, like the study skills are that weak, or often they do not engage in independent study outside the classroom. They seem to believe that as soon as the class have finished, that's it. They go home and they don't engage with any material until the next day. They are heavily involved in an assessed English extensive reading program, and we've been doing that for, let's say, the last 10 years, but it's only the last 2 years that all the students within the colleges, and we have 16 colleges, male and female students, are using the extensive reading program, are engaged in the extensive reading program. So we can also describe the students as exhibiting many of the Generation Z characteristics, and I think this is what all our students fall into this category. Also, to be a Generation Z student, they should have been born after 1997. That's not me. And they're born into technology, as they say, the digital natives, although we should remember that they're not all tech savvy. When we do the online teaching and we try to get them involved in these activities, a lot of them are not really sure what they're doing, and how to prepare PowerPoints and things like that. So their soft skills or the digital skills are not as extensive as we sometimes believe they are. This group of students, they do require immediate feedback, and the online stuff helps us to do that, but we have to remember that, that they can lose interest or tune out very, very quickly as they don't perceive the activity as being important to them or their lives, or if it's useful for the test. And I think many people have talked about this in their presentations, but one of the explanations for that is because of the generation that they were born into. So because of this, we need to explain, we need to give them the feedback, we have to give them meaning, and we have to show them that they are learning and improving, but also they might need to be extrinsically motivated. Some people think that isn't a positive thing, but without the extrinsic motivation, they're never going to be intrinsically motivated in something they haven't done before. And for our students, many of them haven't read anything before they enter the college, even in their own language. Okay, so the level of our students, I found this particular chart because I believe in your context, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you use the TOEIC exam. That's your benchmark exam. And the students that are involved in our project and the lowest level that enter our program are usually about an A2, C for level, IELTS band 3, and that's probably the lowest of that group. I don't actually know what that means. I'm not experienced with that at all. And then the highest level, the exit level, is IELTS band 5, which would be probably a 605 or within this group for the exams that you do. I don't know, you can find the exams that you do and then you'll understand. So they're weak. They don't have very strong English communication skills or reading and writing skills. Okay, so the Higher Colleges of Technology Extensive Reading Programme is an integral part of the reading curriculum in all 16 colleges in the HCT system, including both male and female students. They have about 10 to 15 hours of hybrid instruction per week, with a minimum of 5 hours of independent study. Their extensive readings takes place online, facilitated by X-Reading. And all students have an account, and all the students are required to read it because it's assessed and they get a grade for it. So they can gain 5 or 10%, depending which level they're in, of their overall course grade if they read a predetermined number of words once a fortnight. So they're assessed every 2 weeks throughout the 14-week teaching period. Okay, right, and they do most of that reading. As I said, it's independent, so they do the reading at home and they take the quizzes at home. We're not in our extensive reading program, we're not allowed to do it in the classroom, and that has its own issues. Okay, so the actual Read Aloud program. So this is how we kind of connected the reading curriculum and the project to UAE national initiatives. Now, the UAE has a month of reading, and that comes around in March every year. There's a link to it. We could put it in the chat, Denise, if you can. And this particular last March, and this is when we implemented our Read Aloud project, the theme was My Family Reads. Now, it's kind of well known in the UAE, and the Emirates Literature Foundation has indicated that parents in the UAE don't read to the children, and they have no inclination to do so. And of course, the month of reading is promoting reading activities within the home and among the family. Now, research in the higher colleges of technology has suggested that their peers, or the brothers and sisters, the siblings within the family, especially the female students, take on the role of the parent. And the younger generation, the younger children within the family, are learning from their older siblings. So we decided we had a responsibility to encourage our students, of course, to read more and to provide them with some kind of tool where they could take the reading back home into the family and into the communities. So that's how we came up with our initiative. And we're also, we're kind of required to integrate innovation and topics related to innovation within our curriculum, within the English curriculum. All departments are required to do this. So it was also connected to the Higher Colleges of Technology Innovation Week. So our innovation was to read, record, save, and donate stories to the local communities of the students, or the local communities being the families of the students within our college. The long-term aim would to be share it throughout the community, but there were issues related to sharing the work of students. So it was done within HCT, and all HCT students have access to the tool that we use, the platform, I should say, which was Stream, to share the stories. And that means 20,000 students. Okay, so this was our innovation within the English Communication Department at Abu Dhabi Men's College, I must mention, and the Women's College. They were involved. And Denise came up with this: read, record, save, and donate. They donated the storytelling to our reading program. Okay, so that's one of the reasons that we started the project. But here are some other reasons. We were concerned about student engagement. We realized that many students needed scaffolding into extensive reading. We couldn't just expect them to sit and start reading the book. So we needed something else. It's the age-old problem, but we came up with this. And again, we have to remember that a lot of our students have missed opportunities as they were growing up. A lot of the things that we do perhaps should have been done earlier on. And everyone says that, oh, this is, we have to get the young learners reading. But unfortunately, our students haven't had this pleasure for many, many reasons. So yeah, also the activities should be fun. We have to make sure that our students are enjoying what they're learning, because they've got enough to do with all their other subjects. Because they don't just study English, they also do math and do some other general studies courses. And another key word for students in higher colleges of technologies is entrepreneurship. They're trying to graduate entrepreneurs. So we thought this activity, this project, is encouraging them to engage in a social entrepreneurship activity where they're giving something back to the community. Okay, is there anything else? The weaker students. We found that in the online classroom that some students were not speaking at all. So we wanted to find a way to involve those students without sitting in the class, the online class, just waiting for them to reply, because they never do. Okay, so there you go. These were our the rationale from our perspective. Okay, I feel like I'm talking too much now. So these are some of the benefits of reading aloud that we came up with. I'll just give you a few minutes to look over that yourselves, because I'm not going to read the slide, but if you could read it, and then I'll just make some comments. I'll give you about 30 seconds to do that. Okay. For me, this is very important, the first one. When students are reading aloud, they have to focus on every single word rather than just skimming quickly through the book or, clicking on the pages in X-reading and just trying to get the word count so they can pass the quiz. So they're really focusing on the words. And as they read aloud, of course, they're listening to themselves reading and they're thinking about the audience because we're recording it. So of course, it makes it more memorable. And they're doing more things as they're reading. It helps them to focus on the here and now. They can block out all the social media and the messages, their Instagram, the WhatsApp, the Snapchat, everything that they're really, they're attached to, that they feel they can't live without. But when they start reading stories aloud, they have to focus on that and only that. And that can be very relaxing as well. It just blocks out all the other stuff. This one as well, because they're moving off, they're in the English communications program, they're going to go off into, the bachelor program. We can also encourage them to read when editing their written work. This is another big advantage and something we can tell the students, you're doing this because in the future, this is going to be very useful for you. Yes, and our students are oral learners. They like to speak and obviously, hopefully, the people are listening. So we thought this will tap into their preferred learning style. And a lot of them did it on their phones and, they use social media. So this was encouraging for them. Of course, it improves oral fluency and pronunciation, and it gave us a chance to actually listen to the students, especially those that weren't engaging in the online classes. Yes, a lot of students gain confidence, and we believe that this would lead them or it supports the extensive reading strategies that we want them to engage in. Once they'd finished reading the stories aloud, using X-reading, as Denise is going to explain, they were encouraged, obviously, to go and take the quiz and get the number of words. So it was like a win-win situation all around. But at the end of the day, to draw them in and to get them into the program, we had to extrinsically motivate them with a competition. And we know we use competition to motivate them to read extensively. So we decided that we would make it a competition as well. And Denise is going to tell you all about that now. Thank you.
So can you have the next slide, please, Helen?
Yes, sorry. I was thinking, what's my role now?
Yes. Okay, so with the competition in mind, we wanted to enable students to see the connection between the spoken and the written word to help them improve their pronunciation and their storytelling skills. And so we started off with audio-assisted learning. As Helen said, Generation Z, they're used to using computers, they're tech savvy. So why not use technology, and audio-assisted reading is listening to the story aloud and following the text at the same time. And because of technology, such as this site, naturalreaders.com, it's great. And Helen, maybe you could put that in the chat now. Natural
Yes.
Readers. It's great to be able to, I think you're going to have to write it. Oh, I don't know, maybe not. It's great because students can slow down the speed of reading to any speed they want, so they can comfortably focus on each word along with the tracker. Also, assisted reading is also possible on X-Reading or any YouTube stories. And we encourage students to do this so that they could experience models of good reading, such as reading for prosody, for rhyme, stress, intonation in speech, and also to experience people taking on different tones and stressing key words to add emphasis to the story. And all of these features together mean that it illustrates that the reader understands the story at a much higher level than just decoding single words. And it adding all of those features, such as intonation, stress, tone for different characters, helps the listener understand much more than the individual discrete words. So we encourage the use of online dictionaries, likewise, to check pronunciation of words, and also immersive reader. So every time students have a text online, we encourage them to read and listen simultaneously, especially because English is a non-phonic language. So it's a great help to increase phonological awareness. So next slide, please, Helen.
Yes, it's not moving now, is it? There we go.
Okay, thank you. And also to encourage students to evaluate their own pronunciation of individual words and sentences, we encourage these dictation activities. So dictating using voice recognition software. Now, luckily, whatever the device, whether you're online or offline, you can actually, whether you're on Word or Keynote, you can actually work out a way of dictating. And we got students to take photographs, because we were working online, we got students to take photographs of the book on their phones and then dictate into their computers. Now, if you would like any of these handouts, feel free to email us later on, and we will send you the instructions that we created here. Can we have next slide, please, Helen? Okay. And we also wanted to increase confidence and raise awareness of reading, as I've said. And one way of increasing confidence was to use choral reading in small groups. So that meant that several people together read the same thing at the same time whilst other people listened. And this was a great way of helping people to chunk language together and to build confidence in speaking to an audience and have audience awareness. So often, because we are doing everything online, I got students in the chat to give comments, to give thumbs up, and give instant feedback. Helen talked before about how Generation Z students want instant feedback. So this was a way of doing it through the chat and choral reading. Now, choral reading of text, but also choral reading of instructions or any other material, written material. Another way of encouraging confidence and raising awareness of stress, intonation, pausing, etc., was to use shadow reading. Now, you're at home, you can all shadow read what I'm doing now. So shadow reading is when you repeat what the reader says a second or so after. So you're mimicking their pronunciation. So, for example, read along in the house with me, or in whichever place you are with me. So students repeat what the reader has said a few seconds behind the reader. Okay, and you can do shadow reading with any of the X-reading books, because they're all recorded too. Also, we did peer reading in small breakout groups. This was to build confidence and audience awareness and to allow students to practice their speaking and reading skills. And we emphasized that reading aloud requires much more than decoding the written word, and that by adding the intonation, the tone, the stress, etc., it really gives meaning to text and helps provide a level of understanding beyond the written word for the listener. So, for example, in this story, which was about, it was called The Lion in Love, the woodcutter, when the lion is dangerous, the woodcutter speaks to him in a very soft voice and says, "No, you can't marry my daughter, you've got very sharp nails." And the lion looks sad. And the student was able to get that over through tone and through different pitch. And then when the lion loses his claws, loses his teeth, and he's no longer a threat, the woodcutter shouts at the lion, "Go away, you can't marry my daughter." And the student was able to portray that understanding of the power play through emphasis and tone, which was great. We asked, can they record their own voice while practicing shadowing? That's a good question. I'll think of that for the chat group. I've never done that, but I'll think about, yeah, I guess they can, you know, that question, can they answer their own? Because if you're shadowing what's on your computer screen, then you should be able to just record your voice into your mobile phone, as long as you've got a smartphone. So thank you for that question that popped up. We did encourage students to record all of their stories and upload them onto the channel that Helen mentioned. This channel, it's part of the Microsoft suite. And so the good thing about it is that it's only available to people within your institution. And so students felt that they were secure in uploading and getting feedback. And we had a site called Innovate Reading. Okay, thank you, Helen, moving me on. Now, from the feedback that students got, we came and from the recordings we looked at, we came up with these do and don'ts of reading. So I'm going to give you a few minutes to read this by yourself.
Oops, sorry.
Okay, now this is a perfect document for for choral reading. So for example, if this was our classroom, I would get anyone whose names begin with A to M to read the do green column in a choral group. And then afterwards, anyone whose name was N to Z would read the don't column, the orange column in a group. And then students would be listening to each other. Or if you're in a classroom and you're doing pairs, you can alternate. One side of the class reads do one, next side of the class reads do two, and back and forth like that. And the good thing about shadow reading is you're utilizing time well, and especially with online learning, you have many students engaged at the same time. Okay, next slide, please, Helen. So let's go to the actual recording of the story. Now, again, anything you want that we did in a worksheet, we're happy to share with you and send to you if you let us know, if you email us after the session. So here, basically, we decided to use Zoom as a platform. And the reason we used Zoom was so that the text wasn't mirrored, because some cameras revert the text. So with Zoom, the student, as you could see in the top right-hand corner, the student shared the text and had the camera off, read out the text and recorded at the same time, and then uploaded to our story competition stream channel. Okay. And the good thing about this is it's a safe space for students to share their work, get feedback, and the content is organized into channels and groups, so things are easy to locate. Students' work is easy to locate both for teachers and staff. So in the end, we had 34 videos uploaded. So next slide, please, Helen. And so just a quick brief note on why record the stories. You know, if you tell a story orally and don't record it, it's transient and it's gone, and the students can't reflect. Well, they can reflect on their memory of the experience, but they can't look at it in detail. And also, we sometimes have an issue with students working on their own or doing their work. And so this recording is a great way of students completing the activity themselves and having a finished product. So it develops their independent reading skills, and also saves time in class because they were doing the recordings outside of class. Because of this, it meant students could work at their own pace and have multiple times to reread and re-record. And students did say they reread and recorded stories up to 6 times to get a really good finished product. So all the while it was developing their digital awareness and their digital skills and their presentation skills, because they had to think about speaking to an audience. They produced stories for the wider audience because they were shared. It meant that there was stories sent out to the community, and so modeled reading for the community. And we did spend a lot of time on making students aware that they were reading for other people to listen to or read along with them. So quickly moving through my slide here, again, student created work generated more audio assisted reading and meant that the students could see their progress over a set of recordings and receive comprehensive feedback. Okay, next slide, please, Helen. So moving on to the competition, we had 34 entries, as I said, and 4 judges, and the judges, they looked at so I'm just checking my time as well. They looked at the recordings and looked at fluency, pronunciation, narrative style, and even visual presentation of the story. Because initially a lot of students didn't focus on the pictures, didn't allow the audience to focus on the pictures. And this showed a lack of awareness of the value of pictures when they were studying themselves or reading text themselves. So we really encouraged them to give the listener, the audience, time to look at the photographs and generate ideas and activate background schemata. And we can send you this. We're running out of time, so I'm just going to move on to the next slide. Helen, can I have the next slide? Yes. Okay, some interesting findings, errors that came out. We noticed that many students omitted S. So, for example, they read, Auntie Marie's hat was on the shelf as Auntie Marie hat was on the shelf. They missed out third person S, plural S, and possessive S. it's interesting to posit why, and possibly it's that students, Arab students, have vowel blindness, which I won't go into now, but maybe also the S in many ways, when you say 3 goat, 3 hat, the S doesn't have any grammatical meaning for them. Interestingly, a lot of students added articles when they weren't supposed to be there, either definite or indefinite. But just jumping down to my last square, it was very rewarding to see that there was a lot of self-monitoring and self-correction, because students knew they were speaking to a wider community. They really wanted to present their best form of reading, and they really self-monitored, and this led to an advancement. For example, one student, he missed out S 38 times in a reading, but said it in the last sentence. Next slide, please.
Okay.
Oh, so this is over to
Thank
you.
you. Yeah, thank you, Denise. So
And
you can
just-
see,
We have
Sorry.
3 minutes. 3 minutes, Helen.
right. I thought well, there was the, anyway, so we have to say we started the project because, you know, we had to do some, come up with some kind of initiative for the reading, you know, the month of reading, and it should have been an innovation. So we haven't done anything, we hadn't done anything like this before. So we realize now that there's so much more involved, and the students are getting so much benefit from it than we initially realized. So these are the things, like very briefly, that that were our takeaways from the project, the things that we kind of learned. We've always known that the benefits accrued from engaging in extensive reading will not be actualized if the students they're not practicing or they're not actively engaging in reading. So the reading aloud activities ensured that students were actually doing the reading before they went on to do the X-reading quiz. They actually engaged with the reader and the book, and that we knew that they were doing it themselves. They weren't cheating, we have to say here. This is what we're getting to here. And I know this is a problem. It's not just a problem with our students, but our students are kind of renowned for that kind of behavior because they perceive it as helping. They see it from a different point of view to us. Anyway, so this was very good. So we felt that they were in a better position to, you know, obtain the benefits we all talk about that people get when they do extensive reading. So we felt that we need to implement this Read Aloud program to support and accompany our already existing extensive reading program. It'll also kind of revitalize it, I think. And it'll, again, it can be done outside the classroom. It can be an independent study activity, but at the same time, everyone's working together. So we're creating, like, you know, an online community with reading. And it's a safe environment as well. And it's pulling the students away from social media. And then, of course, as our title, we're leading them into scaffolding them into sustained silent reading and sitting silently alone, reading a book in the extensive reading program. This feedback is very, very important for the characteristics of our Generation Z students, but also for online teaching. This is one of the tenets of online teaching, that students have to be given feedback. And you know that we respond very well to that at the same time. And what I have to say, they get the feedback on the speaking skills and feedback, and then they can make the corrections. We tend not to have a lot of time to spend one-to-one time with students practicing speaking skills. And we encourage them to go to extra classes to do this, but our students don't. So they are developing their actual speaking skills, and it's raising a lot of awareness about speaking and different types of speaking with the students. So I think this covered, we ticked that box, so to speak. What have we done this week with speaking? Well, this was taking care of itself in some respects. What we do feel is that we need to give the students a pre-test and provide specific goals for reading aloud. And this, then we can give them continuous assessment, which again is feedback, by monitoring the words read per minute. Yes, and there are ways to do that, and there are lots of papers, journal papers that we can read, but that's the next step, I feel. Yes, and it was extremely useful to scaffold and support the students who are reluctant to speak in the classroom. We have this in a face-to-face classroom. We have this issue in a face-to-face classroom, but it was, you know, it's dire in the online classrooms, and it's very difficult for the teachers too. So we were so happy, ecstatic actually, to listen to some of the students when they were reading. And every time we listened, we learned something new, I feel. Anyway, and then the biggest takeaway, and I think this is, I've heard this in many of the sessions as well, it's fun. It was a lot of fun, believe it or not, for the students, and they were very, very engaged, well, the ones that joined in. But we feel that we need to take it further and continue next semester, or next week. Our semester starting next week. So we'd like to say how this, or show that reading aloud and extensive reading, they support, or I think reading aloud comes first perhaps with our students, and this can support and work alongside the extensive reading program so that we can develop fluent readers, which is why we're all here in this conference, I believe. There, so our last thing, we've got some comments in the chat. So what are your thoughts now? In the chat box, please tell us about the most useful takeaway from this session. From the first activity, many participants seem you were quite aware of the benefits of reading aloud, but did you learn something new, or is there something that we showed you that you might take away and use in your class that has nothing to do with the session at all, but maybe something popped up in your mind? Could you please share it in the chat?
Okay, we are running a bit over time here.
Yeah. Okay, well, we're done there. If people want to, or we can take this question over into the breakout room.
Very much. Before we go into your breakout rooms, I'd like to ask the attendees to all give the presenters a big hand for their presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much for joining.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Thank you.
Your cat enjoyed it.
Thank you. Yes, my cat seems to have enjoyed it as well.
Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. I shall
For
stop sharing.
Thank you. Very interesting.
a little bit, please join the presenters in their breakout room. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Okay, and Michael, are you ready to get started?
Hi, Wendy. Yes, I'm ready. Yeah, I'm ready for action. Yeah, ready to talk about.
So, Michael, you didn't join me in your breakout room to do a test. Would you like to see if you can share your